Let's dive into it. March rolls around, February rolls around. When did it all hit your desk? Walk us through it.
Yeah, what happened?
And I'm guessing you feel this way, and maybe the listeners feel this way too, but it does, in fact, feel like that was a few years ago at this point.
That's fair.
But
That's 100%
we
2 weeks
fair.
ago.
maybe it's our mind's defense mechanism to repress things that we struggle to deal with. But I mean, at the beginning of March, it looked like shelter-in-place orders were going to come down in California. So we had been hanging on to the idea that it wouldn't happen. And then it looked like it was imminent. And so we were having lots of discussions about how do we shut down a big operation. I mean, we have 1.2 million square feet under roof just outside of Los Angeles, 1,000 people just in that operation alone. And so we were talking about, well, how do we effectively shut that down? And then just hang on through this process. And then one of our team members had the idea of making masks. And we operate a very large cutting facility, the largest automated cutting facility in the world, in our campus in LA, which gave us the ability to quickly transition to masks. And so we went from the first, second week of March thinking we're going to shut the business down to, 2, 3 weeks later, we're headed into full production of masks, up to a point in April of about 100 million of them per week. It was a crazy period when lots of businesses were closing. We were busier than we had never been before in terms of management, production, operations, customer interaction, and we continued, that way right through the pandemic because of masks, and it turned out, I think, really good for
How did
everybody.
the supply chain side get affected? I mean, you started talking about this before, right? You guys make apparel first, right? Obviously, a lot of that froze for about 2 months, so it was easy to shift. But then going
Sure.
forward, the balance of it, right? I mean, I see the mass, the Bella mass everywhere, right? You guys are in retail, you guys are doing wholesale really well. How do you create that
Sure.
that balance?
Not unlike exactly what you described. So we're known in the industry for doing all of our dyeing and all of our cutting in LA, in the United States. And then for any product that doesn't have to be 100% USA made, we ship the components to Central America and we sew them there. Then we bring them back to the US. So in LA, we've got this huge cutting operation. We've got a huge collective dye operation, and we had lots of fabric coming at us because we were growing significantly in Q1 in our normal product. So all that fabric was on its way anyway, and we were very fortunate in that we had that operation in LA that could turn that fast. And because it's automated, it was instantaneous. Those machines will cut masks as easily as they'll cut t-shirts, and frankly, a lot more of them, in the same amount of time. And so that part was the easy part. The fabric was there, the dyeing was there, the cutting was there. That's why we hit the market within days of the whole thing happening. But then, if you talk about sewing, because the original mask didn't require any sewing, that was a lot of the brilliance of it was you could make hundreds of millions of units because you didn't have to sew them. The minute you put a sewing machine on anything, you lose 90% of the productivity. And so we were able to get the big quantities out. Sewing in Central America, shut down, and it's a slow build to get it back. You have to get people back. Many of them don't live close to the factories. They take public transportation that wasn't operating. There's a dexterity, a muscle memory aspect of being productive as a sewer. When you're in it every single day, they get very fast at it. So then that had to be relearned. Some people didn't want to come back to work. There's social distancing requirements. And so we are still building sewing back up to full capacity, but that 60-day interruption was big time. I mean, that's like nothing we've ever
Wow.
experienced before.
So then did you see the bounce back? When did you really start to feel it? Because I'm sure you guys really shut down demand and projections, not knowing what was going to happen. When did you start to feel it bounce back?
If you think about how our channel works, you've got an end customer, the person who ultimately is paying the bill for the product, and then they're buying it either from a decorator or a promotional distributor. If it's a promotional distributor, then they buy it from a decorator. And then you've got those, two companies buying from the wholesalers, like Alfred Broder, my former employer, and then they buy from us. I think what tends to happen is the reaction to things gets amplified every time you take a step. So by the time it was between us and the wholesalers, people were just freaking out because they're scared to death of what was going to happen. And so you've got shipments stopping. Everybody's trying to predict what the recovery is going to look like. And I would say if I gave a weighted average to what opinions were at the time, everyone thought the recovery was going to be, I can't believe I'm going to say a K-shaped recovery because we've all heard about that, politically over the past couple of weeks. But, we thought there was going to be this really sharp decline to the end of April. And that's exactly what happened. And then there would be a recovery that would take until the end of the year to get back to prior year levels. So that was what it looked like, a V sort of traditional leg on one side and this kind of long leg coming out the other side, which I think people call a K-shaped recovery. And so that's what we prepared for. We prepared to get back just to prior year levels by the end of December. What happened was very different in our category and our business. We hit the bottom in April, and then by the end of May, the business was back to prior year. In June, it grew. And in July, it grew. August, it grew. In September, it grew year over year, excluding masks. When something like that occurs, if you've had any interruption in production, you're going to have problems because that hole works its way through the system. There's nothing you can do about it. Once it's created, it just has to go through. And for us right now, it's going through, and it'll continue to go through until the end of the year. And then our projections are that we finally get into that catch-up period where production exceeds demand right around the 1st of January.